Hi, as you know, I'm Caroline, and thank you so much for taking the time to watch my speech. So I'll begin with a quote. No matter how tough a sportswoman may be, her organism is not cut out to sustain certain shocks. This is a quote from Baron Pierre, the Olympic founder, and was taken from the article, The Gender Equality Debate. The benefits of athletics should be shared by all, but sometimes women are not given the comfort of being accepted as athletes. I have experienced certain inequalities because I play on a co-ed sports team at New Paltz and have been put down or watched other women being put down because they are females. This is where my interest comes from, and extensive research was needed to understand why this is an issue. So today I'll be discussing the gendered inequalities of athletics. I'll do this by first exploring the problem, which is how women are not given equal opportunities. Then I will discuss the cause, which is how men are more valued, and then I'll discuss the solution, which is a two-parter. The first part is organization-based, and the second part is educating yourself and getting a workout buddy of a different gender. So to begin, I will discuss how inequalities show themselves. You yourself may have experience in inequality or know someone who has. This is because they are shown at all playing levels. According to the article, Are Men Really Better Athletes? They can start as early as t-ball, with the boys getting individual coaching while the girls are ignored because they are expected to mess up. This flows over into college. According to the gender equality debate, male athletes are given 179 million more in athletic scholarships than women. And according to percentages taken from the Women's Sports Foundation, they are only given 24% of programming funds, 16% of recruitment funds, and 33% of scholarship funds, which showcases how they are not treated equally. Further than this, professional athletes also experience inequalities. This is shown with the U.S. women's national team. According to the gender equality debate, they have won 3 World Cups, 4 Olympic gold medals. Their World Cup final was the most watched U.S. soccer game the most watched soccer game in U.S. history, and they bring in a lot more revenue than the men's team. But according to the U.S. women's soccer players really earning less than men, they earn 38% less than male players. In addition to this, women, according to Gender Equity for Athletes, often receive limited competitive schedules as compared to men, sometimes have to buy their own equipment when men's are supplied, and are often given less than adequate training facilities. There are also less leadership opportunities for women in sports organizations, which can lead to an imbalance of who is being represented. According to Gender Equity for Athletes, there are a lot more male coaches and administrators than females. So these examples showcase how abundant these inequalities can be, but how did they occur? This is because the image of the athlete was made with the male in mind. According to Empowering Sports and Female, men and women are biologically different, and so have different strengths. But women are valued athletically based on abilities that men naturally excel at. So this value isn't fair. To further this, according to Covered Inequality, the gendered subtext of organizations, men are typically considered to be naturally more athletic, which is why, according to Gender Equity for Athletes, there are historical and systematic inequalities embedded in the masculine culture of sports organizations, which leads to the normalization of the devaluing of female athletes and women's sports. This also leads to the thought that, according to Sports and Male Domination, men are okay with women playing sports, but maintain that inequalities are part of the natural order. And often when they're asked about inequalities, according to Gender Equity for Athletes, they often say that it is a women's issue and thus for women to figure out. So why don't women just figure it out then? This is because when women speak out, how they are treated is a part of the problem. According to Gender Equity for Athletes, it is safer for them to stick to the status quo than to speak out and jeopardize having their opportunities and resources being limited, jeopardize having their resources or opportunities limited or taken away. And even if they were to speak out, we know that there are more male administrators than female administrators, and according to Gender Equity for Athletes, female administrators are the ones who prioritize gender equality more. So these issues may not be heard or respected by the men in charge. This needs to change before anything else does, which brings us to the topic of how to solve this issue. The first part is what to change in the fundamentals of sports organizations. The very first thing that needs to happen is that the men and the other people that are part of this problem need to recognize that they are, so that they can change. This is not just a women's issue. Men need to be champions for women's rights as well. In addition to this, there need to be more women in leadership roles, because the female perspective is very important so that women are represented fairly. We also know that women aren't given equal opportunities. So that is why, according to Gender Equity for Athletes, there's a need to address the quantity, quality, and diversity of programs being offered to women. Once this happens, then also according to Gender Equity for Athletes, the gendered culture around sports also needs to be addressed. Equal opportunities is the first step, but the stigma surrounding female athletes also needs to change, which can happen in a few ways, brings us to the second part of our solution, which is to educate yourself. The more you know about this issue, the less likely you are to support inequalities. A great way to understand the differences and similarities between males and females would be to get a workout buddy. This is a great way to push each other while also understanding why inequality should not exist. By being well educated and knowing how to stand up for those who are facing inequalities, especially if you yourself do not face these inequalities, you will be helping to bring an understanding of this issue to the world of athletics. And it is extremely important that we talk about these issues so that we know where to change. We see that the inequalities of athletics stems from women not being given the same opportunities as men, which is caused by men being more valued. But we know that solutions are possible. It may take administrative and program changes, but it can be done. In addition, if we all take the time to educate ourselves and get a workout buddy of a different gender, we can begin to understand where athletic values are unfair. We need to nix the idea that the male athlete is the gold standard and instead start to realize that different strengths are needed for different sports, which is why men and women are both imperative for the athletics we know today. So to fix this issue, I urge you all to learn more about this topic, get a workout buddy of a different gender, and to speak out when biases arise. These are small steps in ending inequalities, but steps we all need. Thank you, and I cannot wait to watch the rest of your speeches.